This is The Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Hill. What they gonna say next?
Hello, and thanks to our friends at TCL Mobile, 2K and Bet with Joel. I'm Joe Gilly, along with Shane Hill, as always. Hammer, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Fantastic to be here, although I'm a bit lonely in the studio today, Joe, with you guys all remote, but lots to deal with, lots of COVID around, games stopped in the WNBL, the NBL as well, but the show must go on.
It certainly does. Plenty to get through today, including a very exciting triple-double for one young Aussie star. We'll get into that shortly, but let's get into in-depth thanks to 2K first. Obviously, there have been a stack of 10-day contracts handed out in the NBA due to players being in COVID protocols and things like that. So I wanted to pick your brains, Hammer, and talk about the top 5 NBL players that are worthy of these call-ups. Should they be available? Should things sort of play out and the logistics work? Who is the first person you think of?
Well, let's lay a few facts on the line to start with, Joe, about what sort of coins involved for some of these guys if they happen to get an opportunity and whether their contract's allowed, because we don't know whether they actually have NBA outs or not. We can only speculate. But minimum wage for 10 days in the NBA, Director Dave tells us, is $53,000 US. Then it goes to $85,000 if you've played 1 year. And then the maximum, Joe Johnson, God bless him, $152,000 for 10 days work coming out of retirement. So pretty good if you can get it. If it was only 20 years and 20 kilos ago, Joe, I would have been straight there. But not to be. I reckon Bryce Cotton, there's no doubt. There is no doubt that Bryce Cotton is the first person on the list. We've seen him. Bryce Cotton could play in the NBA right now. He's already done that. We've seen him perform when he was there. He's a much better player now than when he first had his stints in the NBA. I think with the experience of playing in the NBL, dominating this league for a long period of time, he's a lot craftier. He's a lot better moving without the ball than what he was at the same time. And I think he would actually have a genuine impact in the NBA if he was given an opportunity based on some of these reduced rosters.
Yeah, such an impressive player. 19 points in the second quarter the other night, 29 overall, and basically guided the Wildcats to that win. Who else is on your list?
Well, you've got to go Chris Goulding. We know that there was a little bit of talk around about him going to the NBA after the Olympic Games. He's a world-class shooter. And if you can shoot the three ball, then you've got a spot in the NBA if you're playing around other superstars because you can spread the floor. He's an improved defender. That's still the weakness when you're talking about some of the superstars you have to defend in the NBA. But he can get his shot off from range. He can make things happen off the dribbles we see on screen. And he's a much improved passer when he puts the ball on the floor as well. I think he's NBA caliber.
Does he have enough experience over in the States to be able to slot straight in?
Oh, I think he's got international experience. I think when you spend time on the Olympic team, you get that. You could say the same thing about Jock Landale, and we've seen him being able to perform right now as well. You spend time at the Olympic Games around NBA guys, you get a whole lot of experience. And I think what he's done in the NBL, he spent time also in the Summer League, so there's no doubt he could go over there, slot in, and knock down a whole lot of trifectas.
So Bryce Cotton, Chris Goulding, who's next?
Well, you've got to go Daly. We already know that, he's a role player. He wouldn't have the same sort of impact as a Cotton. We know that. But what you get with Daly is you get NBA experience, you get toughness, you get defense, you get leadership. That locker room guy that's been there, he's won championships. He's got the points on the board. And sometimes for teams bringing players in, they're not looking for guys that can come in and get hot and put a whole lot of points on the board. You're looking for depth and that sort of experience that he could certainly play a valuable role. Even in the NBL, his shot doesn't look great. We know he's not a great scorer, but what he does is a lead at the defensive end, and he would be able to slot back in and play a role immediately.
He would definitely be pretty seamless for him, although, as we were talking about before, it depends on his contract, whether Melbourne United would release him for just 10 days as opposed to a guaranteed contract moving forward. Who else is on your list? Robert Franks?
Going for Vic Law first. Vic Law at number 4. I think he's an NBA player, particularly if he was in the G League. There's no doubt he would have been picked up right now. Again, he's in the same boat as everyone else. Would you leave a great situation in Perth for good money to be able to do that? Maybe he wouldn't be allowed to under his contract. But I think if he did, I think he would be able to do well. I think he could play a really valuable role. He's got that versatility. We know he can play great defence. He's got an IQ as well that can fit around NBA guys, and I think he'd do well.
So with Vic Law, okay, he's guaranteed to a pretty decent paycheck from the Perth Wildcats, but he's a lot younger than the other 3 guys that we've mentioned. I think he's 25, 26. If that was you and you are still chasing your NBA dream, would you take that 10-day contract and risk it?
I think that you potentially would roll the dice. And the reason being is that, we spoke about, can't remember the guy's name from Minnesota, but he came in on a 10-day contract and signed a 2-year extension for $4 million. So Americans think that's what it's all about. He's going to the NBA. They're hell-bent on being able to get there. When that sort of door opens just a little bit, you want to be able to take it because anything can happen. And, I think if he was in that situation, he would be good to go. I don't think his club would allow it. I don't think it would be part of his contract. If you're the Perth Wildcats, there's no way you would have signed him allowing any of their stars to leave on 10-day deals.
And who's number 5?
Well, let's go with your man, Franks. You've brought him up and he's played really well. 21 points, 10 rebounds. He's only 25 years of age. Shooting the 3 ball at 39%, which has been probably the surprise a little bit for me that he's been consistent, but a really good athletic NBA-type body. And, I think with that sort of opportunity, I think he would be able to show that he could fit in and potentially stay longer. But he's going to learn a lot playing for the Brisbane Bullets. The NBL we've seen over the years give guys opportunities to be able to take their game to another level. And I think he'll be a much better player for Summer League next year.
To me, physically, he looks like an NBA caliber player. It's his versatility and his size across the floor has been really impressive. Where is Joe Chi on your list? He's got experience in the NBA at Houston. I think he's averaging 14 points, 8 rebounds, and like almost 5 blocks a game in the NBL so far. He would be on my list.
You've got him number 1, Joe. You told me off air. Is that right?
He's the first person I thought of, who would slot back into an NBA.
There's no doubt he's got NBA upside. And we could go on. We could make 10 players that could get to the NBA on 10-day deals. And I think that he certainly has. I think he's going to continue to be better playing here in Australia. His English is going to get better. I think if you're an NBA team, you're probably going to take somebody that already speaks English. There's not going to be the same sort of transition that needs to be made if you're talking about short-term deals. But when you're the size of what he is, that length, he's certainly an NBA player of the future. And I think it's only just time for him.
Yeah, shout out to Lamar Patterson as well. I feel like he would make his opportunity count in the NBA if he did get a call up too. Let's keep things moving though and get into our starting 5. All right, we're going to give a bit of a shout out to Steven Adams at the Grizzlies, Hammer. He is leading the league in offensive rebounds. As a coach, you know that's massive brownie points. And really the best thing with this for me is that he looks like he's happy playing at Memphis. He had a bit of a dip with the Pels, but he's on track to recapture some of those stats and the form that he had with the Thunder. What have you made of him so far this season?
Well, the coach might like the offensive rebounds, but I guarantee you his guards love his screening and his passing because he's one of the best screeners in the competition. And I don't know why it's taken Director Dave so long to get this bloke onto the show because it's not just what he does on the court. I actually love his interviews better than anybody else. He comes up trumps, and big shout out to our Kiwi friends.
Definitely. We have to try and get him on the show soon. Lance Stevenson has signed a hardship contract. He's back with the Pacers for a 3rd time. What do you think of when I mention the name Lance Stevenson? A
circus. I think of him blowing in the ear of LeBron during the playoffs. And he's a competitor. It'll be interesting to see how he goes when he comes back. But Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes within the locker room, I would have thought.
He's played against him and alongside him, and we must give an ode to the king. At 37 years and 1 day, he drops 43 points. His numbers are pretty much career high through the season so far. He's just unstoppable. It's unbelievable.
There's no doubt he's a freak. As a player, he is one of the greatest. As a GM, he's shocking. But to get that done at 37 years of age, he's a competitor. That's what makes him tick. He just, time after time, and the more people that are writing off the Lakers and him, it's almost like he just gets enthusiastic even more so to be able to prove everybody wrong. And so far he's been able to get it done. Not sure he's going to be able to carry this Lakers team to a championship, but if he does, this will be his greatest season ever without doubt.
It's his presence still at 37. He still plays bully ball out there and creates sort of, or parts the defenders on his way to the bucket. It's crazy to watch. Now, we are 6 games, Melbourne United, I should say, are 6 games into the season. Chris Goulding is putting up 12 shots a game, hitting 5 of them, I believe. Talk to me about the numbers.
12 threes a game in 29 minutes. He's making 5 threes a game. And the great stat man from the NBL came up with this little beauty during the week. Now, we discussed it off air, and you saw this as a bit of a negative. I'm looking at this and going, wow, if you can make 5 threes in 12 attempts in 29 minutes, then that is a great output. And the great Andrew Gaze himself, 11.2 attempts all the way back in 1999. He did play 47 minutes, mind you, per game, but a different era about the way it's accepted too, because back in the day, you weren't shooting as many threes. We were probably a little bit outlandish and a bit cocky, Drewy and I, throwing them up like we were, but Chris Goulding, it's the way they do it, and he's doing it better than anybody right now.
So you think you'd be throwing up more than that if you were playing at the moment?
100% I would. I thought I just didn't get enough shots back in the day, Joe. And in this modern day of playing basketball, I definitely want a few more. But, you know, I mean, let's discuss it. When you first came up, when that stat first came up, you saw it as a negative that he was taking that many threes.
Well, it's quite a startling stat because I think it's just not something you focus on very often. You look at the percentage of what's going in. You don't look necessarily at how many are going up. And so the devil's advocate comes to play. I go, oh, is it too many? Is he facilitating for his teammates enough? But it seems to work. Dean Vickerman clearly has given him a license. And yeah, if I was coaching and he's putting down shots like that, then I would definitely encourage it.
Well, let's talk percentages, because he's shooting the 3 ball at above 40%. And, you know, when you're playing next to Matthew Dellavedova, he has to be scoring because Dally is not scoring and cannot shoot the ball right now. He's the facilitator. He's the defender, the organiser, the leader. So you need somebody like Chris Goulding. I feel like he's been on the leash too much, Goulding, over the years. You listen to Leonard Copeland on the commentary and myself, we're always saying they needed to go at him a little bit more, get him more shots. And I think they're doing that this year. I'm not sure he'll average 5 made threes for the entire season, but so far he's started off really well, and I think that's the perfect role and the balance of why they're having some success early as well.
And credit to him, I think he knocked down his 600th three for Melbourne United against Tassie on New Year's Day, so congratulations to Chris. Now, I want to talk WNBL. Kelly Wilson will be playing her 400th game, so she actually broke the record 2 years ago. She had last season out to have a baby. She comes back and she'll be playing game 400. That's just an incredible achievement, Hammer.
It certainly is, and she's not just playing, she's playing great basketball as well. To come back at that age after having a baby, and this is a great thing about the WNBL and professional sports where, you know, the teams are making it easy and facilitating that to allow great talent like Kelly Wilson to be able to get it done. Playing great basketball, 400 games, a credit to her. And, yeah, we should celebrate it. If this was a man doing it at the same time, it would be headlines across the board for how well she's doing. And, you know, well done. Hopefully she doesn't get a win this week because it's against my Flames.
Shame game 400 is against you guys.
Yep, so hopefully she comes second this week, but we celebrate afterwards and for the rest of her illustrious career. Well done.
We certainly do.
Breaking all the big news in basketball with Matt Logue.
Yes, it is the lowdown, Maddie. Happy New Year to you. Now, unfortunately, we only had 2 NBL games this week due to games being postponed. What is the latest in terms of moving forward? Is the NBL pushing ahead? What's the plan?
Yeah, Joe, and Shane, it's a little bit all over the place, as you said. 2 games cancelled and things change all the time. So basically where it's at is the NBL were hoping to pause the season in February for the Boomers 2 World Cup qualifiers. They now won't do that because they just want to get the season finished. The Players Association agree. So basically it leaves the Boomers in a situation where the clubs can't stop the players from representing their country, but the players can choose not to go. So it leaves Basketball Australia and Coach Brian Goorjian in a situation where some players may not play. I'll get your thoughts, Shane, but I know you always put your country first. But in the world that we live in, there are a few different ramifications.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's completely different for the women's game because Basketball Australia run the WNBL. If one of the players is selected to be able to go on tour this February, next month, and said, no, I want to stay and play, they actually bar the players from playing in the league and have to miss the games they would have missed as well. So completely different scenario. It'd be really interesting to see what the NBL guys, want to do as well, knowing that, it's not as critical time in the build up to anything right now.
Yeah, even speaking with Dean Vickerman, like he said, like as a club, we haven't spoken about it, but like for United, they're on a roll. They'll lose probably, Delhi and Golding. So it's not as simple as just go and represent your country anymore.
But what do you do if you're Brian Goorjian? You've got a couple of the other bigs coming in, and Nick Kay, someone like that. Do you just say to Duop, stay here, help out the Hawks, let's just keep it solid?
Well, this is the hard one, isn't it? Because obviously Gorge wanted everything to stop because he's got to coach the team. So they have the biggest impact because they lose him. But then if they lose any players as well, as you say, it'd be much more beneficial for the Hawks if he stayed at home, the big fella.
My understanding is the Hawks will let him go, guys. They've just said, look, we're going to lose Duop and we're going to lose Brian Goorjian and probably potentially Sam Froling. So it is what it is.
No, fair enough. Now, Thon-Maker has been shopped around the NBL. Maddie, what are you hearing in terms of interest from the clubs?
It's an interesting story because everyone's sort of saying that there's potential interest, but no one's willing to put their name to Thon. I reached out to the Phoenix after they're on the search for a new import, and Tommy Greer, CEO, said we're not currently looking at Thon. It dates back to what we've said on the basketball show before, where Thon's connections around him, people are reluctant to sign him and connect with him from a cultural point of view. And let's be honest, Thon hasn't played his best basketball for some time. So, watch this space. Really, the only club that probably has the space is the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. So if the Jack Jumpers or the Phoenix at this point, everyone else has said, we don't want to borrow him.
And if the Jack Jumpers have got cap space, they are crazy if they don't roll the dice with him right now because they're going to finish bottom. So they have to make some sort of play to continue to get wins and try and create something for the future.
Yeah, good point.
You mentioned the Phoenix there. They sacked their import, Devin Thomas. It just seems like they got that one completely wrong. He didn't fit the box that they needed him to. You've spoken to Tommy Greer, though. What is the latest in terms of their recruiting?
Yeah, he's a bit flustered, Joe and Shane. He doesn't know what to do. And in the COVID world we're in at the moment, a lot of these G League players that they would normally target are being called up to the NBA on 10-day contracts, as you guys have discussed on the show. So it makes it a hard one. They're just going to be patient and play the long game. Tommy briefly mentioned, Dante Exum, but at the end of the day, Dante's killing it at Barcelona. Yeah, exactly. He's going to go back to the NBA. It's where he deserves to be. So I don't think that will happen. So I think the Phoenix will just have to play the long game here, guys. And it's just, as we said earlier, it's the COVID world we live in.
And the tough one for the Phoenix right now is that anyone who has even had a dream of playing in the NBA is going to stay in the G League. They're not coming to Australia in these times because if they're ever going to make it and break through, now's the time. And I can tell even trying to recruit a WNBL import, right now I'm dealing with 8 agents and not one agent have one player for me to watch tape on. It is a tough time to be able to recruiting from overseas. So when they talk the long game, they may end up you're really not getting anybody.
Potentially, yeah, which is just the reality.
We talked about Basketball Australia a fair bit last week in terms of their findings in the Canberra Capitals sort of cheating scandal situation. They are behind closed doors appealing the independent panel findings. They clearly weren't happy with what the panel found, Maddie, but they are insisting that the panel should remain in place. It's confusing for me. Explain this. Talk to me about this situation.
Oh, absolutely, Joe and Shane. It's to be honest, it's ridiculous. Like the independent panel, it's proven so far that it hasn't worked through the incident with the Flames and the Capitals, with the Liz Cambage incident, a number of other incidences throughout time. And basically, Basketball Australia is saying we need one under the current format, that we need an independent panel to make rulings. What they're trying to do, Joe and Shane, is say that we want the findings to be made public, which I think is a good step. And the other good step is to make the panel members public. So if they're going to have it, I think those two steps are important. But I'll get your take, Shane. You've been in the middle of this. My biggest take from my interview with Basketball Australia is that they freely admit that they haven't got strong relationships or have reached out to key stakeholders in the game, including yourself, the Andrew Gazers, etc., etc. And to me, but that's the first thing Basketball Australia needs to change is they need to have a strong relationship, and they need to be transparent, because the public, as you say, the public doesn't know that there's a hearing going on.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Matty. I mean, transparency is the biggest thing. If you go back to the Liz Cambage situation, everyone had heard a lot of things from people that were there and a whole story. And then when the handings happened, it took way too long. So straight away, you've got to jump on that stuff, and you've got to have some sort of clarity and put it out to the basketball community exactly what's gone on and what was found. Why is she not guilty? Why is she guilty? What was that process? Who are the people that made the judgment on this, so they can be kept accountable for the decisions that are made as well. And I think it's all a secret. Even with what we went through, it took way too long to happen. And that my understanding was that the panel weren't available to be able to get together to hear it for a couple of weeks. Then what Basketball Australia put out in our situation, I thought was wrong. It was watered down. It wasn't the facts that we were able to, talk about and present. And you're right. I mean, I think Matt Scriven, coaching in the WNBL, he doesn't need to come to me, but I think that, when you're involved and you've got a voice in the community, you've got a chance to be able to try and help the league. I've never heard from somebody like Matt Scriven. So you think that they would sort of be out there probably a little bit more, and I think they're probably the areas that they've identified and can improve in.
Oh, no doubt. And it needs to happen as soon as possible, because I think at the moment basketball's on such a great rise, but for a long time Basketball Australia and its bureaucratic ways have held the sport back.
And Maddie, what about the World Cup? You've got an update for us.
Yeah, some good news for Basketball Australia. They are saying that they will put in a bid for the 2027 Men's World Cup. And if that doesn't go ahead, then maybe 2031. They stress that it will come down to them making money. They're a non-for-profit, but it's good. This is what we need to see from Basketball Australia: communication and being proactive and putting in bids. We've got the Women's World Cup in Sydney next year, which is going to be great, Joe and Shane. And I think if they can get a Men's World Cup here, given the trajectory of the Boomers, then that's awesome for this country.
Yeah, I agree. And the World Cup this year for the women's in Sydney is going to be awesome, a stepping stone to be able to get the men's. And, hopefully it's run really well. Confident will be. And to have the men's here with some of the high-profile players around the world, not just the Americans, but you look at the Greek Freak. Imagine how many Greeks you would get to a game that they were playing against Serbia or something like that. You'd sell massive amount of tickets. It'd be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. Alrighty, Maddie, plenty to sink our teeth into there. We will get another look down next week. Stay with us, though, because we're going crystal gazing. Yes, time to look ahead to the upcoming games. A very quick look at the leaderboard before we get going. Derek on 17, Maddie, myself, and Director Dave on 18. And yes, Hammer, 2 points ahead on 20. Although I feel like this week will be a bit of a game changer. A couple of us going for some upsets. So we will see what happens. It all kicks off on Friday night. Adelaide are hosting Perth. This game was meant to be played last week, but was put off and moved around. But Hammer, who have you got?
Joe, I feel like you said that last week. But anyway, let's get on with it because I'm still on top of the table. I'm not convinced about Adelaide. I think they've got the talent. I don't mind the way the team has been constructed. They're pretty balanced. They've got enough talent to be able to make the top four. I just don't think that's going to happen. There's something missing for me. Maybe it's a bit of toughness that they don't have. I think the Perth Wildcats would be too strong and too reliable in what Cotton and Law can do. A whole lot of role players as well. They'll win this game.
Well, Derek's not here to defend himself, but I'm pretty sure he went for Adelaide over Perth last time around. He does have a chance to change that decision, so we'll see what happens. Maddie, next up, it's the Jack Jumpers hosting Sydney.
Yeah, I think that the Sydney Kings will be way too good. My understanding is Jalen Adams will be back in the Kings lineup, and that's a game changer. They've really missed him as a distributor and a creator, and I think the Kings have had a rough trot, but I think we judge the Kings when Adams is back, and I think they'll be way too good for the Jack Jumpers. Joe?
Enough. Hammer, you going with the same?
Yeah, definitely. The Kings are going to win this one. Joe, you?
Undisclosed.
Enough said.
Cairns are hosting the Phoenix on Saturday. The Taipans put up a good performance against the Wildcats on New Year's Eve. It's a tough place to go and play, but I think the Phoenix, having been out of action for 21 days because of postponements, they will be itching to get back out on the court. I cannot see the Taipans getting the win there. Southeast Melbourne, far too strong. Hammer, coming to you next, the Hawks hosting Melbourne United.
Well, in saying that, I've gone for Southeast Melbourne as well, just on that last game, but Russ does come into it. It's a long time, 21 days not playing. You want to get momentum, and that's why I'm going to pick Melbourne United to win this next game. I think they're going to upset the Illawarra Hawks on the road. I think Illawarra will probably have a better season, but I think right now, with the COVID problems that they had from the majority of their team, not having any sort of momentum in their games, I think Melbourne are starting to really flow. More games, got their balance right. Golding and Daly in the backcourt, I think, has been a winner for them, feeling good about themselves. I think they go in there and sneak this one.
Yeah, okay. Maddie, who have you gone for in that one?
Yeah, I've gone with the Hawks, but I think Shane makes a really good point because it won't be easy coming out of they've been in quarantine for a long time. They need training time, and I think United are on a roll. So if there's going to be an upset this weekend, I think that if you can call it an upset.
Too late, Matty. Too late. You can't change now, pal.
Mate, Gorgon's Hawks, they'll get it done. He'll get them up.
If we are here next week and Hammer is 5-6 points ahead of the rest of us, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that.
All over.
Maddie, not last game, Brisbane hosting New Zealand. That one's on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this one here, the Bullets will be too good. The Breakers, they've just had a shocker of a year, and I actually think the Bullets are building nicely. Obviously, they've had a bit of a COVID interruption as well, so see how they go, but I've been loving what Sobey's doing, obviously, but Robert Franks is outstanding. And I thought the Bullets maybe would struggle without Vic Law, but I think they can get on a bit of a run here, and I think they'll be way too good for the Breakers.
And the final game is Monday night, the Phoenix hosting Tassie. Tassie's defence has been really impressive, but I think Phoenix have too much firepower offensively in that one that I can't see them, even though Hammer, as you say, momentum's a thing. I don't know. I can't see the Phoenix losing that one.
Well, I think Phoenix will get momentum after playing in Cairns. So they'll come back home, haven't played in front of a big crowd for a while. They'll probably draw one for that one. And I think that's where they'll put the foot to the throttle. And I think Tassie are going to struggle all year on the road.
All right, time will tell. Maddie, thank you so much. We'll chat to you again next week. And let's hope that Hammer is not at the top of the leaderboard still.
Good luck.
Time to bring in Derek Rucker, as we do every week for Points Made, thanks to Bet with Joel. D-Ruck, Happy New Year to you. How are you?
Happy New Year to you, Joe. I'm very well. No complaints. Looking forward to a nice show here. Let's go, Shane.
All right, we'll get straight into it. DeMar DeRozan hitting back-to-back game winners against the Pacers and then Wizards yesterday. The man is on fire, especially in fourth quarters. How cold is he at the moment, Derek, and how legit are the Bulls?
Well, obviously with DeMar DeRozan being there, and I think he's carrying a lot of, what would you say, perhaps bitterness from what happened in Toronto, where he was traded, and then they bring in Kawhi and go on to win the title. San Antonio really didn't do much during his time down there. And then he's traded to Chicago, and a great deal for the Bulls. They barely had to give up anything, and now they've got a legitimate playmaker. DeRozan felt that he became a better player down in San Antonio despite the losing, and I think that was evidenced on the weekend. He's got a lot of basketball courage and a lot of talent, and he's really the spearhead of that Bulls lineup.
Well, I agree with that, and I really like the fact that he's teamed up with Levine. I think as a player, anytime I played with another scorer that could also create, it took the pressure off. You did it a little bit by committee, but I liked some of their role players they've got there with Ball and Vucevic playing great basketball there as well. And I think it's a really good combination. Why do you reckon it didn't succeed for him? He definitely didn't play his best basketball when he was at San Antonio, though, D.
I think San Antonio, as you're seeing now, they're another team that's starting to play better basketball. And they have a lot of young players, Shane, and I just don't think those guys fully grasp what was happening in the league. You know, it takes a while to learn the ins and outs of the competition. And I think now that DeMar has gone up to Chicago, I think he's in a place where he feels like he can really be a leader. And sometimes also there's always the specter of Greg Popovich over that Spurs franchise. I think it takes a special type of star player to be able to play in those circumstances. Kind of like playing under Brian Goorjian.
He's definitely fun to watch at the moment. And because we love stats in the NBA, just check this one out. He's the first player to hit game-winning threes in back-to-back games during one season in 2 different years. It's totally useless, but I still kind of like it. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. We spoke to Joe Ingles at the start of the season about the Jazz and what they've done in the off-season with the different pieces they've added with Hassan Whiteside and Rudy Gay, and whether they can go that next step, and they've done enough to do so. Hammer, based on what you've seen so far, can they do it?
Well, I think they can do it, but I'm not sure they will do it. I like what I like their depth. You know, Mitchell's been great again. They've got probably as much depth with guys being able to come in and contribute at the offensive end by a range of different scorers that can get it done. I'm just not sure they're going to when, you know, it gets to the crunch time. I don't think they've built that trust because we've seen them play well during the season before. They're 26-10. They're 3rd overall in the NBA, but just not convinced they'll get it done when it counts.
And Shane, I know that it's always an awkward conversation anytime we discuss the Jazz with you. And I just think, you know, I've thought for a couple of years, the inability to defend on the perimeter always comes back to bite them. And I think we saw it again over the weekend where they couldn't do the job against an undermanned Warriors team. Like, I thought there was no way Golden State would come back and get that win once the Warriors chopped them down. The Jazz chopped them down in the 3rd quarter. But I mean, is that a fair measure when you're playing against a team that great, Shane, or should we just kind of throw that one out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure you look into any one specific game. I think what Jazz have to be able to do is just show they can win a series against a great team at the end of the year. They've been building for a long time. I like the way they've built. I like their personnel. Just not sure they've got enough to be able to get it done.
Let's hope they do, for Joey's sake especially. Now, I want to ask you about the Rockets. Director Dave, the headline here is Rockets off course. Very clever, I like that. Kevin Porter Jr. left their game against the Nuggets at halftime after reportedly a heated exchange with John Lucas, the assistant coach there. Apparently lost his temper. They got into a bit of a scuffle, had to be separated. Christian Wood also refused to go back on in the second half because Lucas called him out as well. Derek, what do you make of this and the culture at the Rockets?
Well, firstly, the assistant coach who was involved in that incident is none other than John Lucas, one of the most revered assistant coaches and basketball identities in the world. Not to mention, he was one of the guys that I idolized as a young teenager. So I have the utmost respect, as do most people around the basketball community, for John Lucas. So for these young bucks to go trying to mouth off to him, and look, those guys apparently were doing the wrong thing. Christian Wood didn't adhere to COVID testing policy. And Kevin Porter Jr., you know, he decides he didn't like what he heard when they were reviewing film at halftime, takes his stuff off, hops in his car, and just bounces. And what is going on in the world? Because the same thing happened in the NFL just this morning, Joe, Antonio Brown leaves the field at halftime, strips down bare-chested, and bounces out, never to be seen again, announces his retirement on Instagram.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You know, the biggest problem is that these young guys don't surround themselves with the right people, because what they do is they surround themselves with a whole lot of guys that, you know, hang off them and get as much as they can out of them. And they've got a posse of guys that are always there. Their managers don't want to tell them. The agents only tell them what they want to hear, because those same guys will get rid of them otherwise. So they're always hearing the same thing, that they're always right. It takes special players that want to be coached and want to get to the next level and understand and want to watch video of the things they need to get better at and embrace that sort of coaching to be the best player they can. At the end of the day, that's why they are where they're at and why they will end up where they're going to end up. It's not great, and sometimes when you're rebuilding, you get stuck with some of these guys, and makes it even harder to rebuild and get that sort of success.
And look, we're living in very emotional times. Things are weird. Everybody reacts psychologically, you know, to the circumstances, I think, as they feel they're doing their best. But I remember, Shane, in high school, the only time I did something even close to this was after a game. I felt the coach didn't play me enough, and I didn't shower. I got right in my car after the game. You know, I think we had a team meeting. I grabbed my stuff and just went home in my sweaty uniform. So, I mean, I've never left in the middle of a game. I could just never do that to my teammates. So, I don't know. Have you ever come close to leaving?
Almost. Half-time playing for the Bullets. Bruce Palmer said, "That's it, you're done. I'm speaking to your agent on Monday." I said, "Cool, great." Got off my tape, ready to go. Few choice words in between, and anyway, the assistant coaches convinced me to come back out, and we won the game. Dropped a couple of trifectas. Away we go. Put it behind us.
Look, it's emotional, right? And like you said, the true players and the real professionals, you know, you show your resilience and you push through, and you have the mental toughness, and you try and find a common ground temporarily so that you can come back and meet about it later.
Yep. Not good for the Rockets, though. Not good signs.
You certainly do. Wish you all the best on Wednesday, Hammer. D-Rack, thank you so much for that. We'll catch you next week.
No problem, guys.
Run your gang.
All right, Hammer, that is all we've got time for another episode. Big week for you. You're on the road.
5 games in 11 days. We'll be happy to be playing again, that's for sure. But someone who played today, Joe, just in Josh Giddey with a triple-double. How good is this? It was always going to come. He's got it today. 17 points, 13 rebounds, 14 assists, 4 steals. So he's led his team in points, rebounds, assists and steals. In the same game, Luka Doncic, 14, 9 and 10. They did lose.
On his return from injury, but shout out to Josh Giddey. He's having an incredible impact over there in the NBA, the youngest player in history to record a triple-double. So congratulations to him, and look forward to watching the rest of his career. He's going from strength to strength, isn't he?
He didn't just scrape in with a triple-double as well. Great effort, just building confidence and that poise. To be able to have 14 assists is just off the charts as a teenager. So, you know, well done to him, and we look forward to a very bright future, and that includes the green and gold.
Indeed. Hammer, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to TCL Mobile, 2K, and Bet with Joel. We'll be back next week.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.